My name is Ashley. I'm one of the founding members at Social Nature here. We help natural brands win at retail, and we've been doing this for almost 10 years now. So we have learned a few tricks along the way, and that's what's motivated this CPG Unpacked series. And we're so very excited because shopper marketing is always top of our minds, and based on the questions from the webinar registrants, everyone else's minds, especially for the back half of this year. So let me introduce you to Eleanor, who is founder of shopper marketing and retail media agency Hayden Consulting. Eleanor, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Eleanor. I guess you said it. So that's me. I work with CPG brands in the emerging and mid-market space, and we support these brands on shopper marketing, retail media from a full service perspective. So everything from budgeting and planning all the way to execution. And yeah, it's been really fun.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining. Like I said, we have tons of questions for you. And also, as we're chatting, please input any additional questions from the attendees so that we can kind of have this roundtable discussion. And let me introduce you also to Ashley, who is brand director of Hayden's Kitchen. Hayden's Kitchen is a longtime mutual client of both Hayden Consulting and Social Nature. And so I always love to invite a mutual client to the table just to kind of unpack their kind of what and why of working with both Social Nature and Hayden. And also there's been a ton of questions from other brands, just understanding kind of growth strategies as Hayden's has grown from emerging to high growth and established retailers like Target and Walmart. So thanks so much for joining. Yeah, we're really excited to have you both.
Thank you.
Eleanor, I obviously as a shopper marketing manager at emerging brands like Siete and Kodiak Cakes, also having a background in the enterprise space like Pepsi's of the world, what made you decide to do your own thing? That's what I always love to ask.
Yeah. It kind of like timing in life just worked out that way. I actually was originally going to start working with brands on more like a freelance kind of basis. I was trying to spend a little bit more time with my growing family. Like my husband and I just become foster parents. So I was like, I want to spend more time doing that.
Amazing.
And so I was like, oh, I'll just take on like 1 or 2 brands part-time. And then fast forward 3 years later, and we've like built a whole agency. And now we work with 24 CPG brands. We're a team of 7. So we have a lot of really fun things on the horizon. We're actually hiring right now and growing our team. It's been really fun and kind of crazy to see how much growth there is, but I think it just is a testament to how much people really need shopper marketing support, and that like full service shopper marketing support, not just shopper strategy or just like hands-on keys management. Like they need all of it. So
Yeah, that's a good question. I find that a lot of brands come to Social Nature with this idea that we're gonna solve all their shopper marketing problems, which of course I love to try to do, but it's always probably good to have, like, how do you decide? I guess my question for you really is the balancing act between, from a brand's perspective, how to decide what to outsource and what to also, like, what titles should you also have in-house to kind of help liaison and execute? Because I'm thinking depending on the stage of brand, and Ashley, I'd love to know it from your perspective at Havens, but do you have like some advice for brands when they set up and execute these strategies? How much of it is managed in-house versus outsourced to an agency like Hayden?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it perfectly. We are a pretty lean and mean team, and we just, couldn't afford to have someone of like Hayden's expertise in-house. And we also kind of don't have the time to have someone learn how to do that while also being on the team. So this is just one of those situations where it does make more sense to sort of outsource an expert rather than have that expert on the team.
Yeah, that's fair. Eleanor, do you see yourselves as almost like a fractional shopper CMO? Is that kind of how you would think of it? Seems like there's a huge trend in the space for like fractional C-suite, especially
know,
in
it's
marketing
like-
positions these days.
It's such a thing. I mean, yes and no. Like, I think that like for us, because we have a full team that can support the brand, I mean, I like to think of us as more of like an extension of the internal team. We're not there to kind of like make decisions for brands or tell them, you know, here, let me like run it and you do XYZ. It's more, you know, hey, like we're going to present you with like digestible, easy to understand data and information. And then we're going to let you make the decision on how you want to move forward. You know, brands ask us all the time, like, how much should we be spending on shopper marketing at Walmart? And I'm like, okay, well, like, let's break it down. Let's look at what your, you know, projected revenue is. And then let's talk about what your big initiatives are next year and what, you know, do you have line extensions you're trying to sell in? Do you have new products that you're trying to sell in? And here's what we think you actually need here are the tactics that you would need to implement. And this is how much it would all cost. So we can give people really like clear cut. We don't, you know, everything that we do is very calculated. And so I think, you know, yeah, I don't know if I would say like fractional CMO. I don't really think that that's more like our thing, but I think, you know, we work on the brands that we work with, like most of the people, we work with everybody from directly working with CEOs at like some of the kind of more emerging brands to working with like the head of marketing, or even, you know, some brands we work with have shopper marketing teams of like, you know, 1 to 5 people. And we're kind of like helping with guiding in terms of like with brand strategy and all those things. And then we divvy up the work as it relates to execution and things. So kind of
Got it. So you can kind of like address like any gaps on the team and almost like work with any kind of size of brand depending on, I mean, I'm assuming as you go upstream, the initiatives change, but that's really great to know from brand's perspective.
Totally. Yeah.
Also then seeing some of just your messaging, and I feel like if other brands don't know, I certainly would love to know, when you say retail media, what does that look like? Like, because I feel like media and retail media can mean very different things. So maybe you can help unpack that for us.
Totally. I know it's like funny when people are like, oh, I do marketing. I'm like, what kind? Like there's a million things. And then they're like digital. And I'm like, digital grocery, digital like performance marketing. So yes, there's a lot of different definitions. When I'm talking about retail media, I'm thinking specifically of the retailers' media networks. So think Walmart Connect, Kroger's 8451, Target Roundel. And then within that, a lot of what we're talking about, really like most of those budgets start off in sponsored search. And there's actually where I'm noticing a huge gap for brands. Like right now we're hiring, and I have filtered through hundreds of applications of shopper marketers, people who have shopper marketing or omnichannel, even omnichannel managers. They have this amazing experience. And then you ask them, do you have hands-on keys management experience? And like 9 times out of 10, it's a no. So I think it's just like kind of really shows that how much of a gap there is in that knowledge, and why, like, one, we're here to help brands and teach, but two, like why, you know, there's this big opportunity for more engagement, because sponsored search is like, honestly, it's the best bang for your buck tactic if you're utilizing it properly. If you kind of like have your KPIs in line that actually match up to what your like company's contribution margins are. So like we're looking at like, you know, people are like, what kind of ROAS should I be looking for? And I'm like, well, it totally depends on like, how much are you spending on your product? How much are you selling to the retailer? Can we have like an understanding of contribution margin and figuring out like that return on marketing investment? So yeah.
Amazing. How do you all work together, just from a, you know, talking about kind of gaps on the team, and so what are some of the strategies that Hayden's Kitchen leans on Hayden for?
Yeah, well, Hayden's Kitchen is actually our longest standing client relationship. We've worked together. It'll be 3 full years next month. We started working together in October of 2021, which was like 3 months after I started my business. So Hayden's Kitchen was supposed to be one of my like kind of, you know, like, oh, I'll work with 1 or 2 brands. And our relationship has really evolved over the years. When we first started working together, it was very more like rooted in shopper marketing and helping with 360 planning. As Haven's Kitchen was launching their fresh sauces into Sprouts and some other retailers, we were there to really support them with some of those kind of launches. But now, as retailers have really like shifted their resources and kind of gears into more of the like online media, both on site and of course, unfortunately off site. I'm not an offsite ad fan. I'll put that out there. But trying to figure out like, how do we move with the retailer in a way that's still very efficient for the brand? And so, yeah, in terms of us working together, we're still, very much working on the shopper marketing piece and what we can do in store to engage shoppers, but also online and more recently with the aioli launch. So.
Awesome. And is there, I mean, it's interesting, this comes up in a lot of conversations with at Social Nature here. And so brands will come to us and we almost like think of ourselves also as consultants along the way where, when it comes to like price and budget and all of these initiatives and things, I always think when a brand is asking me for advice around this, like, you need to have obviously you need to have like a fairly fleshed out shopper marketing budget to play with, but also then you need to have an order of operations as to which retailers you're going to support, because trying to support all of your retailers is like an insane say and spray strategy that's just never going to land well. And then that's actually one of the biggest aha moments for a lot of brands that I speak to, is that it's almost trickier for brands that have good distribution because they don't know where to spend, and especially as it relates to that ROAS. So any kind of like method to the madness, like, do you do a shopper marketing budget or audit, and how do you allocate budget accordingly?
Totally. Yeah. If there are any salespeople on the call, hopefully this earns some brownie points, because yeah, I before I worked at Kodiak and Siete, I was in sales at Pepsi, and so I'm definitely like very sales and velocity driven and focused on that kind of growth. So the first thing I actually look at is, a lot of brands will be like, okay, well, we just got Target distribution, so, I really, really want to support that. So we make sure, okay, yeah, like let's support it, but let's look at like the size of the prize. Like, what is your expectation for revenue for this year? What are you expecting to grow? What are your velocity expectations from your buyer, to make sure like we're helping kind of meet the expectations there as much as we can. But I would say from the very beginning, what we do is we look at, we separate retailers into 1 to 3 tiers, depending on the brand. And we say like, okay, let's look at your projected revenues for each retailer. And then we break out spend proportionally to those retailers. We use a couple of different like ways to calculate that. We start, with like a 2 to 4% of projected revenue as your shopper marketing budget. But depending on different initiatives and which tier we've placed these retailers in, is how we kind of like allocate and change that spend.
Amazing. And this is a common question for us as brands come to the Social Nature kind of doorstep. Hey, can you help us get onto shelf? And I was like, no. We help get you off shelf.
Off the shelf.
Yeah. So you come with us, and which is really unique about Social Nature is that we could work from a very spotty distribution list. So brands can come to us with those random 498 Walmart locations, and then we would recruit and send our community members into those exact stores. So that's one of our superpowers. But I'm sure this also comes to your doorstep. Are you getting brands onto shelf, or are you helping them defend shelf space, or how do you think of that? Because
so yeah, we help, I guess, like in terms of helping brands get onto shelf, our support does kind of lie, we put together proposal plans for different retailers. So we say like, hey, Walmart, if you'll take our new product, here's what all the things that we're going to do to support, and here's like how much that kind of investment looks like and all of the things. So like, I guess in a sense we can kind of help, and that's like the little cherry on top of their kind of regular sales plan that comes with their TPR and trade spends. And then we say, here's what we're going to do in shopper on top of it. But really a lot of it is like you know, once they're in the retailer, how do we make sure that one, we're defending that shelf space, but growing velocities and staying really relevant? How are we bringing in new to brand shoppers? I think a lot of people get really focused on ROAS. I want a really high ROAS or whatever it is. And it's like, most likely to me, you know, if for anybody listening, if you're using an agency or a retail media partner to manage your campaigns and you have a really high ROAS, go double check how much you're spending on your branded terms, because that is so painful to spend on these placements that you would have won in otherwise. I mean, yes, in some scenarios, it absolutely makes sense to spend on branded terms because, you know, Instacart, for example, is a very competitive marketplace. A lot of people are bidding on competitive terms, but Target doesn't allow competitive bidding. So there's no reason you should be spending on any of your branded terms on Target with, you know, I guess like unless the brand really like was like, we need it. And then I'm like, okay, but I give you the information and you make the decision. But yeah, I think the thing that, you know, you were talking about with Social Nature, how you can kind of work with so many different brands that have like kind of random or spotty distribution. I think that's what makes the programs at Social Nature so approachable and so easy to fit into these budget recommendations that we're making, because one, the data back is really great. Like we get really comprehensive, awesome data from Social Nature. So it's really great for us to learn about our shoppers and where we need to be targeting and focusing our spends. But the other piece that I really like is that it's the onboarding is pretty simple. It's really easy for a brand to engage with Social Nature and have something that's supporting their business and supporting their growth. And then of course it really hits on that new to brand KPI metric that we're really kind of focused on. How do we keep bringing people into the funnel? And to me, this is kind of like a great bottom of funnel way to do it because people are getting to try the product as well. So
yeah, I think one of our main differentiators in this space is having an actual community of natural leaning grocery shoppers who actually want to try the product in the first place, because you know, that true discovery and, you know, true genuine like interest in the brand's product is kind of what happens, what needs to be first before you can facilitate a new customer acquisition or velocity play. So I would agree that thank God for our community. They are, you know, they constantly impress us with every time we make a change to anything on the Social Nature platform. They're like, yeah, that's amazing, we're so into it. So it's so great. Ashley, as we've actually worked with Haven's Kitchen for a similar amount of time, 3 to 4 years, how, like, I mean, how has your own kind of strategies changed at Haven's as you guys have grown explosively, from, you know, the specialty stores, specialty natural grocers, even going from like Sprouts and Whole Foods to national distribution at conventional? How has your kind of thought process changed in that change of direction?
Well, what I think is really cool about having worked with Social Nature and even Hayden, you know, leading up to now in the past before getting these more mass conventional places is like, we've had some time to tailor with these not smaller retailers, but more defined sort of audiences and see what really works there. And as we're sort of growing to now, you know, being with Target, we can take those learnings and then apply them here. So yeah, that's pretty cool to me.
For sure. When you first started out at like as an earlier stage brand, you know, moving in from that, you know, the New York kind of kitchen to retail, what were some of the early stage strategies that were kind of like tried and true that you like always knew you had to have in place? And I'm also going to ask you the same question, Eleanor, because all emerging brands want to know, okay, now that I know what shopper marketing is, where do I start? Like, and how do I, like, you know, how do I even get started? And what's like a tactic that you know should always be in place for that stretch of growth?
Yeah, I think from our point of view, it's kind of like what you were saying when you have so much distribution with different retailers is who are you focusing on? So on the flip side, with having less distribution, it then becomes what sort of cities are we really focusing on? And we're very much a New York brand through and through. So having like a very strong like tri-state area sort of business was really important for us. And even as we're sort of emerging, we always have a focus on these sort of like coastal sort of areas as like our bread and butter.
Where natural shoppers live, right? It's like makes sense. You gotta win in your own backyard, and then you gotta go where the natural shoppers are hanging out. How about you, for you, Eleanor? So yeah, what's a strategy that like is like in your toolkit for every emerging brand?
Yeah, I think that I always have to start with a budget. I like have to go in and also just make sure too that the brand is aligned with, I want to be like super clear on support, but also, I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, you'll probably need to spend 50K on Walmart, or I can't tell you how many brands are like, okay, how much what ROAS do you think you can get me if I give you this much in budget? And I'm like, well, I have to look at your campaigns. Like I refuse to give you an answer until I look at your campaigns. Like everything that we do is so calculated. So I really would need to start with a budget. And we build that in a few ways. Sometimes like a brand will come and just tell us like, here's what the total budget that I have for shopper marketing for this year, where would you put it? And then in other cases they say, hey, you build what you think is the best based on like these revenues that we've given you, and then aligning on that. And usually, yeah, I start with looking at our focus retailers. So like which of the retailers are like their bread and butter that are bringing in the most sales. And then of course, like big important new initiatives like aioli with Haven's Kitchen and launching at Target, like we have to make sure we really support that, right? And so what are all the ways that we can activate that kind of stay within budget? And if we need to ask for incremental budget, we can do all of that. But looking there first, and then yeah, I start at the bottom of the funnel and I work my way up. So I'm looking at first I'm looking at probably like sponsored search and shoppable display, and then I'm moving into like sampling and like couponing options. Sampling as in like giving a free sample of something, not like demos at the grocery store. I need to make that super clear for everybody in the room. I am not a demo girly either. Especially post COVID, but honestly, even before COVID, I still was like, I don't see the effectiveness there. I would way rather give someone a free product coupon to go in and try the product. And realistically, if you look at the cost of a demo in store versus if a person was redeeming a free product coupon, it's going to be pretty similar. And you're actually going to likely get better results because they can try it at home on the foods that they like. Like giving someone a free product coupon for an aioli, they can go home and they can try it on their pizza. They can try it on their sandwiches. They can try it with their salmon. Like however they want to do it, and they're probably going to have a better experience than if they tried it on a cracker at the grocery store. So looking at those kinds of things and kind of working our way up the funnel.
Yeah, we couldn't agree more. I mean, when we started Social Nature, the main kind of comparison that we were competing against in our minds was in-store demos, with the idea that unless you were a founder doing it in your own backyard with a decent amount of brand awareness, it works great. Like I'm never going to compete with Allison handing over the aioli on like a recipe that she made in front of you. Of course you're going to sell a ton of product, but how do you scale that? And also, as your own company scales, founders don't have the, they just don't have the bandwidth to be as involved as they once were. So like, yeah, farmers market, it works great, but that's kind of where Social Nature originated from. Of course, things have changed a lot over the past 10 years, but when would you recommend something like Social Nature? And again, I have to just give some context. So I would think of Social Nature as a new customer acquisition play at those brands' key accounts. So even if a brand is in 1,200 stores, the fact that you can give me those key retail store addresses for us to drive new customers in, that's where it's that return on your investment from a shopper marketing budget is really impactful. But at what stage of brand do you use an execution like Social Nature?
That's a great question. Yeah, I would say it would be like a solid next step right after making sure that your sponsored search and your shoppable display is well supported. But this is also given like certain distribution. I mean, I think we were talking earlier, it feels like with Social Nature, like 1,000 stores minimum is kind of like where you probably need to be at to start activating with Social Nature and feel like its effectiveness. But I think like, yeah, once you have that, plus, you know, you're supporting with your retail media well, and you have like a strong partner there, then yeah, I think that's like a fair next step, especially like when you compare to other couponing options, you know, not to like call anybody out here, but like Ibotta, for example, cool solution for trying, you know, driving new to brand, but in general, it's just so expensive and the minimums are extremely high. And I don't know if you guys, anybody on the call has seen the partnership with Instacart.
I did see that. Tell us your thoughts on that.
I'm gonna spill some tea. No, I'm just kidding. I think like honestly, it worries me to be fully transparent. And I've been kind of open with both of them about this as well, is like my concern. So just for anybody who doesn't know the details, Ibotta and Instacart have partnered together for Ibotta to own essentially all of the promotions that brands were previously able to run on Instacart, with the exception of, I think like there's like the free delivery program and one other one, but it's not like, you know, the traditional dollar off of this product at any retailer that brands would run on Instacart. And we loved recommending those to brands because we would say, hey, like if you have a retailer exclusive product, or if you're running a product at, you know, like a club size that's only at Costco or BJ's or Sam's, great opportunity to utilize that Instacart coupon to help bring down the price a little bit, because on Instacart, the prices are more expensive to the shopper. So how can we make it the same as like in club or in-store price? So that's why we liked using those. But now all of those are going to be powered through Ibotta, which essentially takes away that capability for any brands who are going to be spending less than 70, who can't commit 75K in spend, which is most of emerging brands. And honestly, just disappointing in general, like on the Ibotta front, they did run a smaller program where, you know, you could do these 10 and 30Ks, and they sunset that. So now really Ibotta is just like not approachable for most emerging CPG brands unless they're ready to make that 75K investment. And at that point, honestly, I usually tell brands, even if you're ready, like make sure you have at least 5,000 doors or more, or you're not going to get the redemptions and it's not going to be effective. And you just locked yourself into a 75K deal. So it's really expensive. And the reason I struggle with the partnership also, I mean, yes, of course, I'm bummed for the brands that have lost that ability to now be able to do coupons on Instacart. But to me, it just kind of says that Ibotta is probably going to do, my guess is like another price increase in 25, which for anybody who has looked at an Ibotta contract, their pricing's already like, every year I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. The confidence. I mean, great, again, good platform, but it's like, it gets so expensive. It's tough for anybody. Most of the brands, if we were running Ibotta, we're not getting higher than like a 1.5x ROAS, which is like, you know, out of our control, right? And when you're comparing to like other platforms, it's really hard to justify. So
yeah. I think one of the things that's also sometimes misleading when I talk to a lot of my clients, so this is, you know, the brands who've actually made the leap to social nature. One of the things that I think is not quite as obvious to brands at the early stages, even if you had the money, you don't necessarily have the velocity to spend that kind of cash. So even if you're, I mean, nowadays we all know that financing is slowed, brands are not flush with cash, but even if you wanted to do an end cap on Walmart, for instance, you simply don't have the velocity to be able to pull that off. So there is this kind of, and I think with these partnerships like the Instacart and Ibotta, there are going to be these like huge amount of brands who are kind of left in the dust as to what to even do. And I think this is the biggest misconception that I hear from brands is they've won at Whole Foods and Sprouts, and now they're ready to go national at a conventional, and the leap to do so with no levers to pull kind of in between that stepping stone is what I think is very overwhelming for brands.
true.
Ashley, how did Haven's Kitchen kind of like close the, I mean, was that as big of a leap as like it seems like it would be to me, or how did you guys like navigate going from, you know, making that jump to Target national distribution?
Yeah, I would definitely say from our brand's perspective, when you're going from like these more specialty too conventional. I think the more conventional the retailer is, the more sort of on your own you are as a brand. So that's where I think it goes back to what we were saying before, like, because we got to play with all these strategies in our specialty setting, we got to see what works. And, you know, we have partners like both of you who will carry us into that next stage. So I think if you haven't sort of had anything established, even in like the playing grounds you're already in, it's going to be a lot harder when you realize there's not really any support when you're in the bigger space.
And of course, those buyers are saying, hey, you know, maybe your velocity targets as an emerging brand at Sprouts was 3 sales per store per week. Now you're at Target. We want to see 10 to 15. And it's like, sorry, what? And of course, you're like, well, we have tons of traffic. That should be easy for you to achieve. And it's like, yeah, that's not really how it works, as we all know.
Yeah.
I have a question from a registrant, and it's a good question. So, how can you design and test a shopper marketing strategy on a small scale in a limited market, and then take the findings and blow it out with a launch in a new region or nationally? Is that even achievable, Eleanor?
I'm giggling a little bit because Ashley, I think you have better experience than me with running like city takeovers or like kind of city focuses. I think like the scalability is really difficult just with what's offered today. It's really hard to say, okay, let's just do one region of something. Because even most retailers that had, so like Albertsons and Whole Foods are great examples of retailers that used to offer really great regional shopper marketing activations, and they've all just like fizzled out and are gone. You know, like there's not really anything you can do regionally with those. And then sponsored search on any platform, you can't really target, I guess Kroger you can target by region, but you know, on those, it's just kind of like wherever you're sold, you'll show up. So it's really tough. And then, you know, you could do like some in-store signage and maybe like one region, or you could test out merchandising. But realistically, like I think that you need like a full 360 plan for impact. Like if you're pulling just in-store signage for something, I don't think you're going to get what you're looking for, but you need like in-store signage and like a coupon and like a story, like whatever kind of that tentpole moment is. And you'll need like digital and just like things that are going to appeal to the shopper throughout the entire journey. I mean, we all remember this when social media marketing was like the big thing, and it was like you have to appear in front of a shopper 7 times at least before they're going to click.
Oh, 7. 7 impressions. There's always this magical 7 number, and you're like, okay, I did 7. How come my products aren't flying off the shelves?
Exactly. So it's like you have like, and it kind of translates the same way. I mean, we have to be able to consistently like intercept this person as they're going through their shopper journey and appear in the right ways. And again, like for me, I'm looking at what like is going to be the most cost effective and what I can actually track. If I can't track the performance, it's really difficult for me to recommend it. It's why I you know, like, you know, a lot of people might say that in-store signage is a mid to lower funnel tactic. I still consider it high just because of the lack of like ability to really get much data on it. And there are companies now that say like, oh, we can tell you how many people walk through the aisle. And I'm like, it's actually like illegal to have cameras in the stores counting that. So like they don't have that. There's like sensors. There's a lot of different like companies and things that are trying to do these things. But sorry, I think I got off track. And we were talking about like cities. So anyways, Ashley, I'll let you take it over on the city focus.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question always goes back to what are the goals, and I'm sure that it does, that's always but there is something to be said. Everyone loves a velocity goal. I think I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago, it was really common to take these city takeovers. Like everyone took over LA, and and this idea that the LA has the ideal consumer. Okay, well, LA is really inundated with a lot of offers. So like if you're not winning in LA, don't fret. The other thing I would say is it's a very teeny tiny market with a very, I'm always curious to see what could come out of the data when kind of zooming out a bit. I like to go retailer specific because I think there's a bigger difference between a Sprout shopper and a Whole Foods shopper even than LA and I don't know, New York. Like I wonder if it's more, you know, the other thing I would say is when we set up a social nature campaign, and of course a lot of brands come to us to win as part of the Forager project, and they say, oh my gosh, should I just focus in on a certain amount of sprouts because I want to at least show some velocity, you know, ton of velocity here, and I only have so much budget. I was like, sure, but it could be interesting to hear feedback from your brand in the Sprouts East Coast versus Sprouts West Coast. Like I'm kind of interested in feedback at that stage. And one of the unique things about social nature is the ability to ask custom questions pre and post trial and then filter it by type of shopper. That's very interesting. So one of our clients, Sweet Nothings, got into Walmart from a Sprouts campaign because they were able to filter and tease out the Walmart shoppers from that campaign and prove to Walmart that their product is not, their acai bowl isn't too granola for Walmart. So like those, I mean, I think the common theme is velocity is great, but data sometimes tells the story better. And what I think all brands should be concerned with these days, especially in this very tight CPG market, I'm saying these days the recession finally caught up with CPG, like here we are. What you want to do is anticipate what a buyer is thinking. Like they have their own KPIs. What are some things that they're concerned about your product? You know, you've done enough pitches to know what are some things that come up when you're pitching products or your brand. So just get ahead of it. Use the data to kind of call that out is what I would like to say versus trying to win in a teeny tiny market and scaling from there. I don't know. I don't know if anyone actually did that effectively, and now it seems like that strategy is a little out of vogue.
I remember when I was at Kodiak Cakes, they did city takeovers a lot, but it was from like a brand marketing perspective, which in the scenario, I'm like, that makes sense because you can like paint the town, right? Like you can do that, and you're not limited by like capabilities within a certain retailer without having to say, okay, now we're going to bring in so many third party companies, but then there's all these like red tape. So like Ashley, I was actually curious to hear like your thoughts on some of that city focus.
Yeah, I like exactly what you said. It is just more of like a brand marketing, brand love sort of play. Truly, when we were sort of doing like a bit of a New York focus, I don't think we thought that we immediately gonna be like, oh, our velocities are gonna go up because we put wheat pasting posters up across the street from Whole Foods. It was certainly very cool, and I feel like it contributes to like buzz and awareness, but it's not something that I think we are going to try to go and replicate in every coastal city and definitely not in every state.
Yeah, that's fair. I think winning in your own backyard is, you know, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have like some anchor point. So that's also fair, especially being from, you know, New York is a cool place to anchor your story. We have some questions popping in the chat, so I want to make sure that we address them. And this is a common one, I think. Jenny wants to know from you, Eleanor, thoughts on geo-targeted meta ads, and is there a place for them in shopper marketing? And my guess is, my thought goes to powering rebate tools like Aisle. So question on your thoughts on that.
That one's really hard for me. The reason it's hard for me is like, I feel like there's like, I have hope that it'll get better, but like today with how it works, it's like in a perfect world, you would get an ad for your product and you would click it and it would open to your Kroger app or whatever, you know, whatever retailer app. And the product would open and it would tell you, it would be like, you could add it to cart and purchase right there. But I'm just like not seeing that capability and anywhere, even like Instacart, Instacart kind of announces like, oh, we're so excited to like launch carrot ads and all these things. And it's like, wait, but can you do it yet? Because I have the Instacart app. So I want to be able to open the ad and open it to Instacart. And it doesn't work. It goes to Instacart on Safari. So there's things like that I'm kind of like really struggle with. I think meta ads and like Google ad, like that's great for your D2C business. But as it relates to driving in-store velocities, I don't feel as strong about it. Now, there is a use case, people like to attach, like an aisle offer or any of those kinds of any offers to the ad. But and I don't know, I think that's probably like the main way that, if that's the thing that I kind of, it's cool with these, like with aisle, for example, that you can create your own offer, but yeah, you have to have the space, like the place to put it and like the people to reach out to. And a lot of times it's like, okay, well, do I want to put it on my Instagram? Well, I guess you're rewarding people who are already, if they're following you, they're probably already super fans. So yeah, I guess you could put it on like a meta ad, but I actually personally haven't really looked at like the results of that and like its scalability. I don't know, Ashley, if you have like more thought to share.
Yeah, I actually would love to touch on this. So it's something that I maybe like over a year ago would thought would be a good idea. So basically meta ad leading to a landing page and it has our offer. The problem is like, Aisle is a great tool and it's really cool when you have it on their landing page or something already built in, like you're saying, rewarding our existing audience. But when it's someone who's maybe new to brand and also new to platform, if I just made that word up, they don't know either of these, so there's no trust. And then the comments might be like, this is a scam. And I've seen it all too many times. So that is what I think is really cool about Social Nature is there is an existing community and audience. So with that comes trust for the brands that are already on there as well, because we're affiliated rather than just like some random ad that's sort of floating around Meta.
That's really
one of the things that's really interesting that we've noticed is, and again, it's so cool to have the double-sided marketplace because you set up a platform, you have your own hypothesis, and then you're like, oh, I'm right or wrong. So I thought that, so when you sign up to Social Nature, and if anyone isn't part of the community, sign up so you can get a sense of what we're actually talking about here. You are being served up campaigns that are within your area, but you still have to self-select into the campaign. Tell us why you're interested in trying the product before you're even potentially selected. What I just assumed is, oh, as a community member, they're going to opt into all of the campaigns in their area. No, it doesn't happen. They don't even opt into half of the campaigns in their area. And that really goes back to this like true discovery piece. Like people cannot be bothered to answer pre-trial questions, opt in, go into the grocery store of your choosing, buy the product, upload the receipt if they're not truly interested in the product. And I know that because statistically, through our platform over the 9 years, we've never filled all campaigns within an area against the same person. It's so wild to me. So there's that. The other thing I think that a lot of people forget is going back to the concept of ROAS. Has anyone tried to run like an effective, like even if you get the right person who's opted in and say they're not confused, because a lot of times they are confused because they're like, what am I clicking on? How much did it cost you to get that click? Like it's pretty insanely expensive. So it really, the ROAS, like, the wheels really fall off the bus, in my opinion, when I look at the ROAS of that strategy, because the brand didn't have that huge digital marketing funnel to serve that QR code up to. Now, if you're an established brand or you've just secured a really badass influencer, by all means, there's always a place for these tactics, but to assume that you have to then go build the digital marketing funnel, then serve it up and manage for all the confusion within that funnel, good luck. Everyone tried it last year, and I'm telling you, no one is coming back with like good responses. So
I think that's what makes it different though, right? Like Social Nature actually has the platform, so it takes the pressure off of the client. I mean, not that there isn't a place for like an aisle or a visor. I think like both of those are completely, to me, like in different categories of products or campaign, like products, I guess, tactics. Yeah. So I think it's more like, yeah, the execution, the setup, it's a lot simpler and people get to try it on Social Nature, where like, if you're using Visor, that's like if you have an opportunity to be selling, to do, oh my gosh, why can't I think of the word, sweepstakes, like if you wanted to do a sweepstakes or something like that, but that's like a completely different tactic, right? So
Yeah, so maybe to unpack that in case people don't know who Visor is. So how does Visor work, and like when would you recommend Visor?
oh yeah. So Visor is a digital manufacturer's coupon tool, essentially. So they're one of the only companies that you can actually go and set up. You know, every time, I don't know if any field marketers out there are listening, but you know, whenever you had a paper coupon that you would take to races or farmers markets or events to hand out to people, it would be kind of like the similar scenario, except you could do it digitally. So it's nice because I actually really like Visor for a few things. One, I think customer service it's super helpful for, because I think about it all the time with these customer service teams that are getting complaints or like, you know, my product got here and it was smushed. And instead of having to send them a paper coupon in the mail for a free product, you can just email them, you know, a link, and it's super secure. We don't have to worry about people copying it or, duplicating it or things like that. But so, and I would say like the biggest difference between Visor and Aisle. So, you know, Aisle is this, you know, trying to achieve the same thing, but the process is very different because Aisle is redemption, where Visor is an actual coupon. I think, you know, with Aisle, it's easier for the brand to set up because there's not much like that needs to be done to set it up. So that's why you see so many brands like signing up, but it's really a lot of work for the shopper. Where on Visor is the other way around. It's a little bit more difficult for the brand to set up, but once it's set up, then you're set, and then the brand can go and redeem at any of these retailers. So it kind of depends on like how you look at it, but that to me is like more digital couponing realm, and that feels very different to me than you know, maybe like I mean, I know that Social Nature is technically also, but because you have a platform, it's like a full activation to me.
Mm-hmm. Question for both of you, and again, thematically, this has come up a few times. So what would, and it's anonymous, so I can't see your name, but when a brand needs predictable impact, what levers would you recommend pulling first? And again, that seems like this like kind of common theme, like if I have to do something and I need predictable impact, what's my first lever?
You need predictable impact. Is there like a specific retailer you think, or just like anywhere?
Yeah, so I think it's more in the sense of like predictable kind of velocity impact. Like what's your kind of like, but it's a good point. It probably changes by retailer, but maybe.
I mean, realistically, like it kind of, okay. So have we been in moments where a brand has come to us and totally panicked and said, Eleanor, we really have to figure out for Q4, like we're freaking out, like spend whatever you need to spend. We need to get the revenue. So yeah, like there are definitely times where we might pull levers that I like wouldn't recommend on a regular day, but there's times where you're just like, okay, we just got to get this done and knock it out. And so like, yeah, and in those scenarios, your biggest bet is going to be offering like really high value coupons, or even honestly, a lot of the times I kind of step out of my shopper marketing box for a minute and I'm like, can we set up another TPR? Can you guys like get another promo running for this year? Can we set up a circle offer or whatever it is? So usually, yeah, the first step or the first kind of go-to would be discounts, which again, I wouldn't, you know, definitely don't want to like train shoppers to only purchase when on sale, but in a scenario like that where you're like, oh crap. And then there are a series of like regional retailers that offer like pay to play display that is not like crazy expensive. So, you know, then I'd kind of like look through and see if it wasn't a retailer specific ask, if it was just like, we need to hit this revenue this year. So I would look through and see kind of where I could get in-store display, and then probably like lowering my ROAS expectations on my sponsored search platforms to figure out how I can just grow sales as much as possible. So.
Another facet to that question for me, if it wasn't specifically about velocity, like one of the main reasons we're about to run a Social Nature campaign is to kind of help out our like target.com digital penetration. So what we're really trying to do is get reviews like and have people, you know, show that they trust us on target.com. So we're going to be running something very soon, and then that's very predictable. We know we're going to get reviews that will be showcased on target.com, which should, you know, hopefully help us generate more sales there too.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a very kind of, with Walmart and Target's requirements about having fresh reviews as you launch new products, that's a common use case for Social Nature. And we do have a number of partnerships in place to get those reviews onto .coms. I think there's a common kind of misinformation that brands always need to use a bizarre voice to make this happen. But I happen to know that Yotpo just announced their syndication partnership with Target. And so we have a partnership with Yotpo. So for emerging brands out there who need to syndicate their reviews, you can do so to your own site, to Walmart and Target, and then to other retailers if you have the cash to spend on power reviews and bizarre voice. We have all partnerships in place for all syndication purposes, but yes, I would start with Yotpo for any emerging brands out there who want to, play. You'd have to be a D2C brand for Yotpo to work. That's my only thing. Okay. We are running out of time, and I feel like we could chat about this all day long. So before we actually lose people, I just want to make sure there's some questions. Jason has a great point. Like, we're talking about different vendors as a follow-up to this conversation. We will include some of those players and a recording of this call. But I also, you will see a pop-up on your screen to all attendees to, we're asking you if you want to stay in touch with us. If you want to stay in touch with Social Nature, opt in. We're offering free 500 activations for all y'all who might want to test their waters with the campaign. So thank you so much for joining. Eleanor, I know that you have a little blurb of people staying in touch with you. Why should people opt in to stay in touch with you?
Oh, well, I would love to just teach people more on shopper marketing and retail media. And if your brand needs support there, we can help you as well. We're actually also going to be launching this week. We're going to be announcing a series of virtual online boot camps. So we're going to be doing some sponsored search training specifically for Instacart, Whole Foods on Amazon, and Walmart, where we're excited to kind of teach people hands-on keys, sponsored search management. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And Ashley, why do people want to stay in touch with Haven's Kitchen aside from trying your new aioli? I can't wait.
Yeah, so hopefully you're all cooking at home. We make tons of easy recipes using our, little squeezy aioli. And we'll send a coupon your way so you could try it out if you haven't already.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for your time, ladies. It was really wonderful chatting through all of this stuff. I have a feeling people are going to have more questions than answers we were able to provide in 45 minutes. It's a very hot topic, but that's why you're staying in touch with us. We will send this recording out to everyone who wasn't able to make it. But thanks so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having us. It's great to see you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.